Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's Sunday, the 25th of January, and it's 7:28 p.m. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you had a lovely weekend. I certainly did. And very relaxing. Um, Nothing special really happened, but that's just the way we like it up here. Oh, my wife went to a rally for the presidential candidate and next president of Costa Rica. And yeah, nice enough guy. I hope he gets it. Um, I think it would be a first for a president from my region of Costa Rica, which is a province of Limon, canton of Matina, which is, I guess you could say, a narco trafficking hub. But this he's a good guy, he's trying to change things. They're grabbing up a lot of people now, um, and they're all being extradited to the US. So I want to talk a little bit about the world tonight and a little bit about politics and a little bit about religion. Um, and how all of these things are mixing together. I suppose if you look at it from the perspective of Bill Cooper, they've always been mixed together. You know, the people running the world have a religion, and it's the Luciferian religion. And it's not for me, but I'm not going to crap on it. I mean, you can learn a lot from the Luciferian system. I mean, I'm very open minded about these things. I'm in no mind to judge. And I'm not possessed by the radical, eternal, and permanent duality of the Abrahamic system, which fuels a lot of this nonsense, right? It fuels it because when you convince people that they have one life to live and if they get it wrong, they're going to suffer eternally, you're going to change the way those people live. And it's not going to be for the better. And it's not true. It's a very primitive theology. And uh, it's not just the Catholics, which begat the Protestants, the Anglicans, the Lutherans, the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Methodists, and so on and so forth. It's not just the Catholics. The Jews have also been selling this heaven hell horse shit for a long time now too. Rabbis are starting to talk about reincarnation now. You see these videos on YouTube. Why we kept reincarnation secret? Habad. It's all these Habad rabbis as well, and they're insufferably arrogant. I don't like them. Okay, I don't, and I don't like the religion. I don't like the rabbis. I don't like the theology. I don't like anything about it. And it's largely a Luciferian system, mainly. It has some good stuff, but mainly a Luciferian system. So I find myself drawn into this topic again. And it's not one that I favor talking about much. And if they themselves had not started talking so much, I wouldn't say anything. But they have begun a massive campaign of public influence. They are trying to set themselves up as the world's only religion. So look, if you folks can't see this now, you're just not looking. And I can't help you. Okay? I mean, it's as plain as the nose on your face now. It's as plain as a city bus coming down the street at 5 o'clock. It's as plain as the sun and the moon. It's as plain as raspberry jam. They're not hiding it anymore. I'll tell you why I find it offensive. But before I get into that, let me say, let me preempt any suggestion of anti-Semitism. It is impossible for any reasonable person, possessed of reasonable or above average intelligence, to look upon the Jewish culture, the Jewish religion, and the Jewish people and not have respect. And anybody who tells you they don't have respect is lying. It doesn't have to be a positive respect. It can be the kind of respect you have for, let's say, Hell's Angels, you know, um, or ICE in Minneapolis, right? It may not be a hell, I don't think a lot of the Minnesotans are too respectful of them or positively respectful of them, but you have to respect them. Okay? Now, the Jews command my highest respect. But remember, I also respect Luciferians and I also respect Satanists. To be honest with you, the people I don't respect are the people who waft through life and don't commit to anything. Like, I call them the NPCs, the non-playing characters. They're the most pathetic and loathsome human beings on the planet. They are the true definition of the useless eater. Okay? They have no meaning or purpose behind their lives. They haven't committed to anything. So I want to say at the outset that I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jewish culture. These people were literate en masse. Like they achieved literacy levels in their culture at nearly 100% centuries before um, the rest of us did in Europe because they read Hebrew, they read their Torah. They apply themselves to society and the cultivation and development of society with a religious fervor because it is a big part of their religion. Building the world, this world, is their religion. There's many aspects to their religion, but the thrust of the typical Jew's life is to make the world better than you left it. Advance a science, advance a medicine, contribute some music, write a book. So I don't want to hear any disrespect for our Jewish brothers and sisters because they are absolutely remarkable people. Remarkable. Nobody can take that away from them, and anybody who does is just bitter and jealous. Okay? So that's the good part. And I wanted to get that out of the way in the beginning. I see a tremendous amount of problems in this religion. Things that have caught up to them. um, obstinances. One of the things that marks them the most is a refusal to assimilate and adapt to evolving cultures. Okay? When you commit to Judaism, and not all Jews commit to Judaism, many of them are just what we would call cultural Jews. And I think that they will be treated the same as Gentiles when the axe falls. And the axe is falling. The axe will fall. Make no mistake about this, okay? I suppose you could say that a lot of the things I'm going to cover tonight I've covered before in other podcasts, but repetition is a big part of learning. And they're in fourth gear now. They've just got the pedal to the metal. And they're really proselytizing now. So the criticisms I do have, I would keep to myself. In another 10 years ago, I would have kept them to myself. Now I do not. And the reason I do not now is that the public debate has begun. The Jews have begun a campaign to make every kind of spiritual thought and religious and spiritual practice other than theirs taboo. They want to eradicate every form of religious expression on the planet, and the religious expression they have the most contempt for is Christianity. You know how 90% of homicides are in a family? You guys know that, right? Statistically, 90% of homicides. I mean, outside of really poor gang-ridden areas, like Chicago and stuff like that. But if you look at any country like Canada or the United States, 90% of the homicides, and I'm just talking off the top of my head here. It could be 95, it could be 85, but the point is, the vast majority of homicides are within a family. It's husband and wife, it's a son killing a parent, it's the husband killing the wife, it's the wife killing the husband. And my point is, many times in life, it's easier to get along with strangers than it is to get along with the people you live with. And the people you live with will test you in ways that strangers don't. And the people you live with provide mirrors or reflections of yourself that you might not like. And this, of course, is the Abrahamic family that I'm referring to, the family of the Abrahamic religions. I believe that the Jews are capable of making peace with the Muslims because the Muslims are much more similar to the Jews. But the Muslims also revere Christ as a prophet, and a very important prophet, by the way. They also revere Mary as the greatest woman who ever lived, more so even than Sarah, the wife of Abraham. So there's a few hurdles for the Chabad to get over with Islam as well. For the sticklers, for the dogmatists, for the people who don't get stuck in the details and look at the system and say, look, I'm going to try fasting and praying and I'm going to see if I can feel something inside myself. I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to the super dense, super stupid, super obtuse people who think a religion is just following rules. And there's a lot of people like that in the Islamic faith. It's pure dogma. It is the most dogmatic faith on the planet. Second is Judaism. Christianity is a very liberal religion. Okay? And part of what's going on now in the world and part of the rebuke of liberalism is, make no mistake about it, a rebuke against malignant Christianity. And it is malignant Christianity. Love cannot solve every problem. Okay? There are some times you have to be severe with people, or you're not going to survive. If you're out in a boat and the boat capsizes and you end up on a lifeboat and the lifeboat is full and somebody keeps standing up, risking tipping their lifeboat and drowning people, you have to prevent the person from standing up. And if they're autistic or stupid or something, you're going to have to knock them out. You're going to have to hit them over the head with something and render them unconscious because they represent a safety concern for the other dozen or so people in the lifeboat. And we have hit a stage of liberalism now that is just absolutely and completely disconnected from reality. It's insane. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Ilhan Omar, although I don't think she's a real liberal. I think she's just, well, first of all, she's just a cunt. And I know that's a nasty word, but remember, I have Scottish heritage, right? And it's used 100 times a day by a single person in Glasgow, so I'm very familiar with the word. And Ilhan Omar is just a cunt. That's what she is. She's just a fucking cunt. Okay? Best example I can think of for why women should be punched in the face is Ilhan Omar. I'll be honest with yourself. Tell me when she's doing that smug shit walking down a hall and a mic's in her face and people are asking her about fraud. And she says, oh, you've got that mind virus the Republicans have. No, we're talking about missing billions of dollars. We're talking about factual things here. But in a way, she's a benefit to us because she's the idiot standing up in their raft. Okay? And I mark my words, she will be abandoned by the Democratic elite. They will turn her over to the lions. They will let her be sent into the Coliseum to be eaten alive. Because she fucked up. She didn't strategize with anybody. She didn't talk things over with the DNC. She didn't come up with talking points. Yes, there's been severe fraud. Yes, some of it's come out of my community. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. This is intolerable. She decided to write her own script. I think the Democratic Party is collapsing. I think the Republican Party is collapsing as well. Very strange what's going on in America now. Well, it's really, when you think about it, it's going on everywhere. So Ilahan is going to be sent to the wolves. She's going to be sent out into the forest. She's going to be sacrificed. She all but volunteered with her behavior. They can't save her now. She's too far gone. I haven't seen anybody coming out to defend her. I haven't seen AOC coming out to defend her. I haven't seen Nancy Pelosi coming out to defend her. I haven't seen Gavin Newsom coming out to defend her. And as the escalation goes on, what happens is as we continue to focus on the bipolarity of politics, the right and the left, we fail to address serious issues. Okay? It's almost like the intensity of issues is rising on both sides. Like I'll be honest with you, I find ICE in Minnesota to be a little bit offensive. I'd say I might be 80% with them, but that last 20% is hard to swallow. And they do look like a Gestapo on the street. They do look like brown shirts. They do look like fascists. Another guy killed. That's two people killed now. right? Now they're being stupid, but they're being told to do that by their elected officials. Mike Waltz is saying fight them, but those guys aren't there to back them up. Ilhan Omar is saying fight them. Fascists have come to our state. Protect our Constitution. Have you noticed that the liberals are starting to sound like Republicans now? They're citing the Constitution. 5 years ago, liberals, the Democratic Party of America, Democratic National Congress, never talked about the Constitution. That was the odious document that those infernal Republicans kept citing. Oh, that goddamn Constitution. I wish they'd shut up about that. Now the liberals are going on and on about the Constitution. Now you got cross-dressing, tattooed fairy militias, literally, talking about the Second Amendment. Whereas before ICE came to Minnesota, they didn't give a shit about the Second Amendment. But this is all part of the plan. To really understand what's going on, you have to understand systems and you have to understand systems theory. Okay? Look at any system and realize it's a machine. Okay? So the Department of Education is a machine. It runs on policies. Policies are like the conceptual engineering of the system. And when all of those policies are functioning, it's like all these tiny gears moving inside a watch. And tick, 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 you get the time and everything works. Now, to maintain any machine, you need energy. Doesn't matter whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's the Department of Agriculture, whether it's um, the State Department, whether it's the Treasury. Doesn't matter what department it is, or as we call them in the Commonwealth, ministries. They are machines. And the principal cogs in those machines are human beings. For the moment, but perfect policy could easily be executed by AI. So the human beings are in the machine, and the human beings show up every day because they get paid. And what do they get paid? They get paid money. Okay? So there's nothing really wrong with the systems. The systems are not complicated. A tractor engine is not a complicated thing for a competent mechanic. A car engine is not a complicated thing for a competent mechanic. An airplane engine is not a complicated thing for a competent mechanic. So you've got the machine, you've got the ability to maintain the machine, you've got the ability to replace parts, parts being human beings executing policy. Replacing parts is done by an adjunct system called human resources. So you get intertwining of systems, cooperative intertwining of systems. And this whole giant machine runs on money. And there's no more money. Not any real money, anyways. They can keep printing it, but the problem with continuing to print it is in a country that buys 90% of the stuff you buy as an American now is imported. You're not making it at home. You don't have a circular closed loop circuits economy. This is what globalization did. It put us in a position where we could no longer control our economies by displacing vital aspects of an economy into foreign territories and importing it back in. This is what free trade was all about. The most insidious part of the last 80 years has been the economics. We've been all over this in the Talamanca Review. We've been all over what it's clearly explained in many sections of The Devil in Us. Although I don't do a purely economic chapter in that book because it isn't a political book, it's a spiritual and sociological book and a memoir. But economics is the most complicit system in the undermining of all other systems. Because if you don't have money, you can't run these systems. You can't run these conceptual machines. You can't pay the employees, the civil servants. You can't have them execute policy. You can't do anything. The whole thing breaks down. And it broke down some time ago, probably close to 18 years ago in 2008, 19 years ago, 2007, 2008. In the subprime mortgage debacle. The system broke, and their solution was quantitative easing, which means the issuance of capital to public banks from the central bank, or in the case of the United States, the Federal Reserve, without any purchase of bonds. You see, before that, banking had always been done on a quid pro quo basis. The Federal Reserve could not issue money without selling bonds. The bond purchase gave them the authority to print the money because the bond purchases stated that the world wanted more US dollars. These are the rudimentary basics of economics. This is Economics 101, first year university. Okay? Now, for years, the Fed has been buying its own bonds. The whole thing is on bubblegum now. Like nothing but faith is holding this system together now, or faith or stupidity. People waking up every day and not realizing how grievous the situation is because they cannot comprehend the economics of it. Because economics has been the spooky science. Nobody really understands economics. In reality, it's a non-science. It's a pseudoscience. Okay? Science, how can you call something predicated on human behavior a science? Who knows what human beings are going to do? Right? And economics is entirely predicated on human behavior. In so-called free societies, you have an economics of capital issuance through a central bank. They don't have to worry about these problems in top-down dictatorial societies. By the way, China is not a communist country. Okay? Stop saying it is. The RMB, the Chinese currency, is traded internationally. It's one of the cornerstones of the new BRICS alliance. It's, you know, when you were back in the Cold War, you could not get rubles. You could not go to Chase Manhattan, or you could not go to Wells Fargo and buy rubles for dollars. The Russian ruble was not traded internationally. It was a closed system. They were outside of the financial systems of the West. If you had to go to Russia, you would have to get a diplomatic visa or be defecting, but you would have to get a diplomatic visa if you wanted to go there. And then you would land in Moscow on the airplane, and the attaché from the Russian government would meet you, and you would be given rubles to dollar exchange. Okay, just in case you wanted to go to restaurants or do whatever you wanted to do. But you could not use Visa, MasterCard, or American Express in Russia in 1988. Their system was not integrated with the West. The whole point of a communist system is you don't throw your currency into the capital markets, because the capital markets are controlled by who? Fucking capitalists. So why would you throw your currency into a capitalist market? So let's stop saying that China is a communist country. China is the model of what they want. It is authoritarian capitalism. We don't have elections here, peon. We decide who runs the country. We decide what's going to be done. There are no two parties here. The one uniparty will figure everything out with internal skirmishes from time to time, which result in landfills being dug and bodies being dumped in them. Shit you not. More people die in Beijing politics than any other politics in the world. People disappear or get shot in the head, executed in Beijing all the time. Power is for keeps in Chinese culture. It's been that way for 5,000 years. They don't fuck around. Okay? It's authoritarian capitalism. And it's coming up everywhere now. Okay? Has anybody taken a close look at the peace board? What it really is? I mean, it sounds good. The marketing is there. We can see the fingerprints of Edward Bernays and his genius at public manipulation. The marketing, the public relations is there. Oh, peace board. Oh, Donald Trump is inviting world leaders to sit on his peace board for Gaza. You know who's going to run Gaza? A collection of corporations. It's not going to be the Knesset. It's not going to be Israel. It's going to be a collection of corporations. Okay? What's that? Well, let me try and think of an expression. How about authoritarian capitalism? Okay? So we're ending up with the very worst of all worlds now. Okay? We're ending up with the authority of communism, the authoritarianism of communism, and we're still laden with debt. At least in a communist country, there's no debt. Here's your apartment, comrade. Here is your money to buy stuff at the grocery, comrade. You know, here's a special ticket for you to go get a new pair of shoes for your kids when the warehouse is stocked at the end of the month. Go get your shoes, comrade. You never had to worry about anything. You never lose your house. You don't have to worry about living on the street. For the most part, there was no homelessness. They ran everything. So you didn't have debt. But you had the authoritarianism and you had the inability to fully express yourself as we suggested from the West, projecting our culture into theirs. Hey, you want to be the free you that you can be. And there were restrictions on things that could be researched and studied by the scientific community if they conflicted with communist philosophy. So the authoritarianism was in some measure tolerable because at the end of the day, at least you had a roof, you had food, and you didn't have to worry about living on the street and freezing in the winter. In the new authoritarian capitalism, you have the same sort of government that the Soviet Union had. You have no guarantee of a place to live. In fact, a place to live is becoming more and more specious, more and more rare for many people at the lower rungs of society. Okay? The level of homelessness now in Canada and the United States is epic. Epic. It's a shit show. Okay? And why? Because they couldn't afford their rent and because they're responsible for themselves. Because it's a capitalist society. Pull yourself up from the bootstraps. Get yourself some Jesus. Get a little hope in your life. Come on, man. So, at the same time, We have notice from our learned rabbinical friends that the Mashiach is coming. The Mashiach. Whatever the fuck that is. Okay? I don't mean to be disrespectful, but how much respect do you have to show a religion that shows no respect for any other religion? They're pretty much saying, we want a debate. Nobody really takes them up on it. But if anybody were to undertake it, it would probably be best undertaken by a guy living in an earthbag house that can't be taken away from him. So behind the scenes in all of this are the Jews. Now, more and more the peon Jews, the morons who go to synagogue and believe what the moron rabbi tells them, who hears it from a moron rabbi higher up the ladder from them, who hears it from someone higher up the ladder who knows exactly what's going on and is laughing at them all. Because there's no unity in that community. They don't love each other. They're a hateful, spiteful people. They turn on each other all the time. Okay? So don't buy into the myth of Torah unity. It's complete bullshit. So the Mashiach is coming, and he's going to restore the world, whatever that means. And Christ was not the Messiah, according to the Jews. And to be honest, I'm inclined to believe my learned rabbinical friends on that one. I mean, some stuff they get right. Okay? There's absolutely some stuff they get right. And as I said, I respect them, and I respect them because they're a remarkable people. They don't waste time. They're not sitting around watching TV all day. They're out there, they're doing things, they're making money, they're starting businesses, they're inventing things, they're doing stuff. And you got to give them that, okay? It's a remarkable trait, and a lot of cultures could use it, okay? But let's look at this religion that claims to be the only true religion on the planet. And the rabbis are actually saying on YouTube now, the only true holy book on the planet is the Torah. But apparently, under Noahide law, Gentiles are not allowed to study it. You can be killed for being caught with a Torah if you're a Gentile under Noahide law. But according to some rabbis, like Manis Friedman, a very popular Chabad rabbi on YouTube now, the Gentiles, the Goy, will be lined up to learn from the rabbis. Well, which is it? Do we have access to the Torah or don't we? You see, they can't even agree among themselves. This is what's so comical about the whole thing. Okay? And it is, in my estimation, a very toxic and negative religion, which is fundamentally Luciferian. It's multidimensional. It can it can fabricate or fool people in some regards and simulate mysticism, but it's not mysticism. It's not connection with the creator. It's, for the most part, black magic and other forms of magic. So very, very powerful understanding of the human psychology in Judaism. Okay? It's really, in many ways, the architecture of the human mind and how to manipulate it. That's why so many brilliant manipulators have come out of Jewish culture, like Edward Bernays. There's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant, long 30,000 word section, 15 chapters, just on Edward Bernays and the Blackbird Talmud. That chapter alone is worth buying the book. Okay? There's very little love in the Jewish system. And if you're in this game long enough, as I have been, you will come to understand that every religion in the world regards the primary creator. The principal characteristic of the creator is love. Okay? So you could say that the bliss state that the yogis talk about is being imbued with, or tearing down all your psychological blocks, or in another way of saying it, clearing your karma so the love can flow in. Okay, and this love is tangible. It has tangible qualities in the inner states, in the meditative states. It's energetic. Love is an energy. It's gasoline. It's electricity. Love is an energy. Okay, and it makes sense that that's the definition of God, because it's the money in all the natural systems. The love of God, or the energy of the Creator, underwrites every system. It underwrites the insect world. It underwrites sea life. It underwrites the rainforest I live in. It underwrites every breath I take in this body, incarnated as Bruce McDonald. It's indivisible from life. We can't see it. We can't smell it. We can't touch it. We can apprehend it internally, and that's it. And so religion is largely an internal state. I find it interesting to watch some of these YouTube videos with some of the prominent Chabad rabbis. I listen to them earnestly, and I don't judge. I just take it in, and I think about it. I contemplate it. There was another thing said by Manis Friedman on another video I watched. He said that people who believe there's a better place than this, meaning that you live your life to attain heaven, are akin to terrorists. Because a person who believes there's a better place than this physical world, is a very dangerous human being, right? And I mean, you can take that for what you want, but I take it as a foreshadowing to guillotines, because they're going to be killing a lot of people under Noahide law. And there's no 8 years on death row under Noahide law. When your ticket comes up, you go for your trial with the rabbis, you get your verdict, and you're killed the same day. And I believe the killings are all going to be by guillotine. It's a bit of a cryptic podcast tonight. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I mean, I just did the joy of, the joy of being. So give me a break here. I myself am in a very positive mood. I'm full of love today. I had a wonderful day, wonderful flow of life. But this is the reality that's coming. And the chauvinism that bothers me the most about the Jews is that they attribute their success and their survival to God. And they produce, at least Manis Friedman is now producing it as evidence that the Jews are God's chosen people. I don't believe it. In fact, the evidence contradicts everything he says. But let's be honest, Jews lie a lot to Gentiles. They don't tell us the truth. They don't think we're worthy of a real dialogue with them. We're like, you know, how do you settle a dog down? Give it a treat. That's how they see us. And I'm not being anti-Semitic. I've already told you I have the highest respect for the culture. Okay? But truth is truth, and I'm going to speak my truth on this podcast. It's occurred to me that some of these podcasts and some of the books I've written are so caustic that if I ever went back, maybe for my mother's funeral or something, I could be arrested at Pearson Airport in Toronto. It's a possibility. If I went to a jury trial, I don't think I'd get convicted, because the body of my work doesn't show hatred for the Jews. It's a body of evidence showing a pattern of behavior, right? And if they're free to do it to us, why am I not free to do it to them? Are they the chosen people? Do I have to acknowledge that? If that's what's being posited, my answer is fuck off. Take my head, kill me if you can. You'll have to find me in the jungle, and I'll get 20 of you before you get me. But it won't be them. They'll send dumb Goy in to get me. The way they did it is, as I've already explained on the Talamanca review, they realized what very few people realized until recently. And that is the most important weapon ever created was money. It's not the musket. It's not the sword. It's not the cannonball. It's not nuclear weapons. It's fucking money. What do you do when you go to war? You try to get people to submit to what you want them to submit to, and you use physical force. What do they do with money? What does the IMF do? What does the Bank of International Settlements do? What does the World Trade Organization do? They economically, through sanctions and other means, pressure countries to do what they want them to do. And it's 10 times more successful than physical wars. And this is one of the reasons I respect our Hebrew brothers and sisters. Okay? They were smart enough to see that. And we weren't. We never really realized what money is. I figured it out probably around 2001. I don't know how I started thinking about money, but I just did. And I went, oh, wait a minute. And, I didn't see there was no YouTube back then. I just started thinking about it. And my father was an economist. My brother's a chartered financial analyst, which is the highest designation you can get in the financial world. It's harder to get than the designation of a chartered accountant. It's way harder to get than an MBA. It's one of the it's the sort of the highest academic status or title status in the financial world is chartered financial analyst. These are people who get hired as analysts by transnational banks, and they generally get paid a lot of money. Okay. Yet my brother and my father never really understood what money was. And we used to get, I think my number one fans here, we used to get into fights about it. I started to figure it out, and I would say to my dad, well, if the only place you can get money is at a bank, and they lend you money, they lend you 100, and in a year you have to pay them 110, where do you get that extra $10 to pay them if the only place that... And then they would come back with these fancy, well, it's very complicated. Anytime, hang on, my number one fan wants to come in. Oh, Jesus, it's the two of them. It's Petey and Saul. It's the two of them. They're thick as thieves. I mean, the best of friends. Um, we were worried. We thought that Saul would attack Petey, but the American Staffordshire Terrier, the race knows itself. They like his attitude towards Petey is just sterling. He's right behind me here. Look at this. Can they see you? Hey, buddy. There he is. Ah! He's like a land shark. He's a little bit nippy. So money's always been the greatest weapon. Okay? And the motto of the Mossad, war by deception, let's be honest, that's been the motto of Jews for at least 4 centuries, maybe 2,000 years. You know, I don't want to get into who's right in the Abrahamic system or who Jesus was. I think the Gospels are brilliant. I think actually the Torah itself is brilliant. I wish the Jews would live by it and not just follow the rules like, well, blah, 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 but from the heart, really live it. We'd be living in a much better world. And I like a lot of the stuff in Islam as well. Sharia economics is incredibly enlightened. What you can and cannot make a profit on. It's really, you should read it. Read up on Sharia economics. So I don't want to get into any kind of argument about who's right. I don't really have a dog in that fight. Jews, Christians, or Muslims. I understand all three systems. I was born Catholic. I've studied a little bit about the Jewish system, and I studied quite a bit about the Islamic system, read quite a bit, and prayed with the Sufis for a year every Saturday. 4 hours at a time, and they're all very interesting systems, but they're all fundamentally flawed. And the fundamental flaw in all three systems is they don't represent life as a cycle. They represent it as a flat line. Born, succeed or fail, fail is hell, succeed is heaven. And it's disgusting. It's a disgusting system. It puts so much psychological pressure on people. Now, I will say this about the system. If I were to sum up the message of the Christ in one word, the word would be forgive. It seems as though of all the prophets in the system, Christ was the most advanced in this consciousness, in my opinion. I don't want to get into some fucking rabbinical debate with a bunch of black hat bearded fucks, okay? But in my opinion, Christ was the most advanced. And we see it now, right? And so much of the Bible is leading up to these end times, which it's just, by the way, it's an astrological, again, it's not the end of the fucking world, it's the end of a cycle. And the priests and the rabbis and the imams, they should make that clear. We're going from Pisces to Aquarius. And this fucking nut job on the other side of the Talamanca Mountains, opening up his fucking Shiva yap and telling everybody the world's ending, should shut the fuck up. Because the world is not ending. Okay? It's not time for this world to end. We're not at the end of a great cycle. We're at the end of a significant cycle, but not a universe-ending cycle. You see, the world will not end. The world will end when the universe ends. And this universe has been created and destroyed. This is the 72nd instance of this universe. The time frame in the Galactic Historian is 55 million years. And I'm supposed to get all worried about 6,000 years. A bunch of rabbis are telling us human beings have existed. Fuck off with your bullshit. I don't believe it. Okay? But unfortunately for me and for you, a lot of people still believe this shit because they've never made any real effort to understand what God is. They've just accepted what they've been given, accepted the family or cultural program they were born into, practice it half-assed, if at all, and then only go to God in an emergency. By the way, God's not a big fan of that, in my opinion. Okay? God likes it when you spend time with him when everything's going good in your life, not just when you need him. But very few people do that. Everybody's last minute Sally. Oh God, please save me. Anyways, I don't know what to title this. I'll think of something. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.